Okay, let's give it a try. Let's see if we can both be seen in the camera. I think that's probably the best we can do. So this is Julie, and we're just going to pretend that there's no camera action happening. All right, so let's just do some humming. Onset comfortable for you? When you first start, does it feel extremely gentle and easy? I hear a little bit of push.
Okay.
I just hear a little bit of pressure. It's not a lot. It's just a little. So I would imagine just the onset being a little bit gentler, and then just maybe sending a little more air through without pressure. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay. There it is. It's a really slight difference for you. It's just a little gentler. I like that it's gentler. It's a little bit sleepy. I like the way you slide from note to note. When I'm doing this exercise, I can't help but feel like it's just like the beginning of a yawn. It's just a little bit sleepy, and that's exactly how it sounds. So let's go low. Do it again. See if you can connect those last two notes with no pressure. And see how that feels. Same thing. Beginning of a yawn. Nice. I know this is uncomfortable, but just keep trying to feel that yawn. One more. Good. Okay. Hum, and then mi, me, ma, mo, mu. Of that? Where are you sensing? Where are you getting sensation?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. What I hear is a lot of forward, which is great, and then you're not probably totally warm, but I also want to hear a little bit of more spaciousness.
Okay.
So it's wonderful that the resonance is focused here, but I wonder if you can imagine that behind it there is more spaciousness, more loft. And that also can come from a little bit less pressure and just more space, and airflow. It's a very slight change for you. Do you sense that that's any different?
Not really.
To me, I hear a difference. To me, it sounds a little less pointed and a little bit more gentle and relaxed and very resonant. It's a very slight difference for you because you're a pro, but I do notice it. Let's keep trying that. Sense of the beginning of a yawn, lots of airflow, lots of space, but not pressure. Very nice. That when you go lower in all the exercises that we've done, there's a tendency to just put a little extra pressure on those notes to make sure they're going to come out. Totally understandable, and what you probably would do in performance, obviously, because you need to know that those notes are going to come out. But when you're warming up, rather than putting just that little bit of extra pressure, which is like putting your foot on the gas just a little bit more, I would think kind of the opposite. I would think about letting more air flow through, having a little bit more space, and connecting the notes and trusting. And you can risk that when you're alone in a practice room or when you're with me or whatever, because the notes will come out. And when there's a slight amount of push on them, we lose a little bit of the resonance, the warmth, and it changes the tone just slightly. These are all such slight things for you because your voice is very well lined up. Let's sing Vive Vowel. And take your time, there's no need to rush. Good, so use that V. V, and feel it right here. V. Make sure that when you start the V, you're starting on the pitch. So it's V, V, yeah. This is what I hear. I'm gonna exaggerate. V, V. There's a gearing up for it, and that's not necessary at all. Trust. Do you notice this, or it's just what I'm hearing? It
sings with the vowel.
Is it? Yeah.
This is a very closed vowel, and then with the V, it makes it more aggressive.
Can you so still make use of the V, but without pressure? Yeah. Yeah. V. You're still gearing up to it. You're going V.
Vive, vive.
Better.
Vive, va.
stretch.
For now, forever.
No, it's really good. So what I hear is all very professional sounding and very beautiful. I do hear more shifting than need be through the passaggio. So let's work on that a little bit. What is your favorite vowel to sing through the passaggio and in the high part of your voice?
Would be an ah.
It would be an ah, okay.
Yeah.
And just because you feel like it gives you more womb. Yeah.
Because it's more relaxed. I think the E is quite, it's a closed vowel.
Yes.
I think before, when I was younger, my voice was it was all too far back. Yeah, especially in the ah would get swallowed. It was easier to do E for everything.
Right.
But the E is very hard to. It's too bright, and in the passaggio, it
Yes. I mean, there's many ways to approach the passaggio. Some people feel like they need to narrow it into a smaller space, and then the E might be helpful to them. But that doesn't work for everybody. So let's see if we can use the ah vowel and transition a little bit more smoothly. And if not, then we'll try other vowels. One thing I also noticed is that you drop quite a bit. You open the jaw quite wide, quite early. That might work for you, but maybe it's not necessary. So let's try a little bit similar exercise, and just see that what I like to think is that there is space between my back teeth, and that the space between my back teeth does increase as I go higher. So that's really kind of more here than in the front of the mouth, and it's never enormous because it's really just about space right there. Of course you're going to open your mouth more, but it feels less significant if you're thinking about the back teeth. Va. Va.
Va.
This way. I want to see you. Yeah, that's great. That's good. I want to see you from the side.
Va.
Mezzo-Passaggio, but I also hear a slight shift when you get to G, which is a very soprano-y thing to do.
I've always been Zwischenfach.
Yeah.
I was never
absolute, for sure, mezzo. It's interesting. I mean, it's also probably just smart navigation on your part. But let's go back. I want to hear that again. It's quite good. Right before you get to the passaggio, that is where I'd like you to think about not opening up too much in the mouth. Space behind the back teeth, but not a terribly open mouth. Same thing, va.
Va. Va. Va.
Okay. Is that noticeably different to you?
Yeah.
What I hear out here is a more concentrated sound.
Yeah.
So, and that's, as I was saying, some people feel they have to narrow through the passaggio. That's a little risky because it can make people just get tighter through the passaggio, right?
Yes.
So, however, it is a little bit of concentrating the sound, and if we open our mouths too wide, the risk is that the sound is going to go splat.
Yeah.
With the mouth a little more closed and just that space behind the back teeth, it keeps it a little bit neater through the passaggio. So what I was hearing there is a more concentrated sound. Where the vibrato sounds great, you wouldn't know you're going through passaggio. It's just nice and on track.
Yeah.
Let's try that again. Listen. That's what's excellent, is your E now, which is kind of right in the middle of the passaggio notes, is ringing and shiny and totally in line. So let's keep going with that. Alright, try that again, and you can allow a little bit more space between the back teeth. Now, when you sing and you're starting to sing higher, do you have a sensation? What are you sensing? Where is the breath? Where is the resonance?
I feel, I mean, like we had talked before, I feel my voice has changed a bit over the past couple of years, that I have much more access to high than I used to. You know? That's much easier. And it just comes naturally, and I feel it mostly in the back of the head, and of course these small little things do make a difference. You know?
It's incredible. I mean, when you're already a professional, it is these little tiny tweaks that make the difference.
Because when I was in university before, when I was in conservatory, E was my most horrible tone, which all the mezzo arias
of course
are all around this.
Yes.
And it was always a place where the vibrato wasn't right, it was stuck. Just a stuck note, yeah?
Yes.
And now it's, you know, it's not the same problem at all.
Yes. Partly age is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, I think that sense of feeling stuck is your body knowing that the passaggio is about to happen and trying to take control. And when you learn how to navigate that as you get older, it becomes easier and easier. But I think when we only are listening to ourselves in a practice room or working on music on our own, we can get into trouble because we're listening to ourselves.
Yeah.
And don't really have any idea what it sounds like out there. And the slight difference between what you were doing before, which was overdropping on that E, just diffuse the sound a little bit, just a bit, which might make a difference in a hall.
Yeah.
And then when it's just a little bit more concentrated, it sounds like the rest of your voice. So there's nobody's going to notice that was a shift. So that's what we want.
Yeah.
Let's try to start there again and take it higher. We'll start just below. That's great. I want to encourage you to, as you're reaching just past the passaggio, I want you to encourage you to then allow more space between the back teeth, not a lot, and think of it as a beautiful stretch up, a yawn. I like the yawn concept because we allow more air to flow through. It's just the beginning of a yawn. If you have the end of a yawn, there's too much tension happening here. But this is going to help make a little bit more room in those top notes for you, so that it's not hard work, and the right balance between this core sound, which you have a lot of, and spaciousness. We want to find that perfect balance. So. I see, we could.
Nothing. There's nothing about that.
No, I actually think that there is above that. What I hear is that it sounds to me like you are a mezzo who has approached your high notes from the bottom up, which is a totally legitimate way for lower voices to approach high notes. It's quite common. I'm not sure that I would probably want to explore what it felt like to approach them from the top down as an experiment, and to see if I think it would increase your range, and I think it would just take a little bit of pressure off some of the high notes. Your voice, you're fortunate because the sound is beautiful, but I do feel like there's just a little bit too much pressure on those notes at the top. The way that I would target that is very similar to what we've been talking about. I would think about less forward pressure, more spaciousness behind, not changing the vowel at all. The vowel is perfect, it's right here. But behind that, there's so much space. And so to me, it looks like the vowel is here and it's quite small. Behind that, you have a little more space behind the back teeth, and then back here, it's like a hot air balloon, tons of space, and a steady flow of air that keeps that hot air balloon very buoyant and wide and big. And you can also think of it as just allowing more airflow. It's not pushing, there's no pressure, it's an allowing of more air to flow through. Let's just try that, going back up top again. And yeah, we'll stop when it gets uncomfortable.
Okay. What do you want me to, what do you want to
Va, same. Va. And that is usually when you're attempting to let go of tension. That can happen. I mean, obviously, tongue tension is everybody's challenge. If I tell you to take less pressure off of those notes, and your tongue is used to being involved in that pressure, it's going to freak out and not know what to do. And you're smart enough to know that your tongue shouldn't be holding on, so you try to let it go, but it's not quite ready to let go, so it shakes. Not the end of the world. It's actually a good thing. It's a sign that you're trying to do it exactly right. But it's also a sign that the tongue has been overly involved. I think, and I wonder too if it's also partly singing in chorus, because I know you don't sing so high in chorus, but you are putting out a lot of sound for a lot of hours. And there's just a little bit of pressure.
I've always had, when I was younger, I always had the problem with the tongue. It was much more pronounced when I was younger, but it's always been a challenge.
I don't really know anyone for whom that is not a challenge at some point. For some people, it's really only in the passaggio or only certain types of musical passages, but it's just a problem for everyone. It's such a massive, strong, stubborn muscle that is all the way back down here in our throat, and it really wants to take part in singing, and it does not appreciate being left out. So it takes a lot of mental work. Also, I find it's helpful that rather than thinking, oh God, my tongue is holding on, that's bad, I have to let go of it, instead focus on what you can do with your tongue, which is to properly form the vowel. Which for is so simple. It's this tongue that's completely loose and mostly flat with a little bit of lift in the middle, especially as you go higher. There will be a little bit of lift in the middle, and that is totally healthy and fine. So you can visualize that as you're going higher, just that this tongue is like completely floppy in the neck, but that the middle of the tongue is lifting towards the roof of the mouth just slightly. Also, I like to think about a widening in the throat, widening the back of the tongue. Because thinking relax is somehow more difficult than thinking of just widening, just widening. It's so slight what you're doing, and it's obviously built into years of wonderful singing. So these little, it's not like you need to make these changes in order to be a good singer because you're already a very good singer. It's just really little changes that primarily affect tone quality and resonance, how well you can be heard, and also how tiring it is. You don't sing in your top that much, but if you were to sing in your top more and you're putting pressure on it, that's very, very quickly will tire you out.
Yeah.
What we just did, starting kind of above your passaggio, I'd like to do that again. And I'd like you to think temporarily like a soprano. And
I don't know what that means.
Well, I mean, you know me pretty well. You know my singing and speaking voice. Think about how a soprano would approach those notes with not a lot of pressure, not too much, it's not a big deal, and trusting that those notes are going to come out with half as much pressure. Still a lot of airflow, but spaciousness and a lack of pressure. And if the notes don't come out, who cares? It's just us. But I think you can trust those notes to come out without pressure. So. Good. Let's keep the V only on the first note. That's better. Good. Let's change the vowel slightly. I think that'll help you keep it lighter as you go up. So think, instead of va, think vi. So the very end of it is just moving a little bit towards an E. Vi. And when you're on that top note, it's just thinking vi instead of va helps keep it a little bit lighter. Give that a try. Half that much pressure. So that's just an experiment. It's not that I want you to go out there and sing off of your voice or holding back. It's more that I want you to sense that you can sing those notes without pressure. And then you have so much more of a range of how to approach those notes based on what you're singing. If you only have a couple of high notes, you can sing them as full out as you want to. But if you're navigating a slightly higher tessitura, I want you to know that you have options and that it doesn't always have to be, you know, a sound that's really pedal to the metal. Yeah. And also when you practice, you know, if you practice approaching these higher notes more lightly and also, and without pressure, I bet you will find that there is life above high C, that there are notes up there. You will experience quite a big shift in where you sense the notes and the texture of the notes, but there are notes up there for you. And you'll never use them necessarily professionally, but I actually believe that it's really important to stretch up there. But if there's too much pressure in, say, passaggio E to B, there's too much pressure, you're eliminating the possibility of stretching higher. Okay, let's work on repertoire a little bit. Here, let's stop this for a second.